Okay, so what we're learning today is very similar to what we've been doing. We've been graphing equations. So every time we've graphed an equation so far, it's been in the standard form, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Today you're going to learn that if it's not put in that form, how we put it in that form so that we can graph it. And so the first skill that we're going to need is being able to factor perfect square trinomials. What makes something a perfect square trinomial is that their factors are exactly the same. So if we're looking at number 1, we are looking for something that multiplies to give me 25 and adds to give me 10. So what number would multiply to give me this and add to give me that? 5. So it would be 5 and 5, right? So the way we would write that would be x plus 5 squared, because it's the same thing twice. And that's a perfect square trinomial, because it's the same thing twice. So in number 2, if I'm looking for something that multiplies to give me 49 and adds to give me negative 14, what number would that be? Negative 7. So we'd write that as x minus 7 squared. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, now for these, we want to make them perfect squares. So we're looking for the number, our last number here, that we would multiply to get. The way that you would find that is you would take your b, you would divide it by 2, and then you would square that number. So that's what c is going to equal. So let's try an example of that. In number 4, if I want to find c here, I'm going to take b. b is 6. I'm going to divide that by 2, and that's going to give me 3. Then I need to square that number, and that's going to give me 9. So my c would actually be 9, because if you think about it, if we were factoring this, what number would multiply to give us 9 but add to give us 3? Add to give us 6? 3. Okay? Let's look at another one of those. So in number 5, if I wanted to find c, what would make this a perfect square trinomial? I would take b, which is negative 20. I would divide that by 2, which would give me a negative 10, and then I would have to square that. And so my c would end up being 100. So if I factor that, my two factors would be negative 10 and negative 10. Are y'all with me so far? Okay, let's try one more of those. So looking at number 6, if I wanted to find what would make this a perfect square trinomial, I would take b, which is 4. I'd divide that by 2. It would give me 2. And then I'd square that. If I squared it, my c would be 4. Okay, now we're going to take both of these and use them to complete the square so that we can write our equation in standard form. Does anybody remember completing the square from algebra? Because you actually learned it last year. A few of you. Okay, let's look at an example of this. So if we want this in standard form, we've got to have something in parentheses with x squared, something in parentheses with y squared equals r squared. So what I'm going to do is I want to look at my original equation. So here's my original equation. I see 2 x's, and I see 2 values with y. So I'm going to be completing the square for x and completing the square for y. So to get c for my x's, I would take negative 6 and divide that by 2, which would give me a negative 3. Then I would square that negative 3, and it would give me 9. So I completed that square, so 9 goes there. Now, if I put 9 on the left-hand side, I also have to do the same thing on the right-hand side to make it fair. So we would add 9 on this side of the equal sign. So left side and right side. Then we're going to complete the square for my y's. So I'm going to take 4. I'm going to divide that by 2. That's going to give me 2, and then I have to square that. So when I complete the square, my number is 4. And so if I put a 4 on the left-hand side, I also have to put it on the right-hand side. Now, writing the equation is actually the easiest part. We're going to have parentheses with an x in it squared plus parentheses with a y in it squared equals our number. The number that goes in here with x is what we got when we divided b by 2. What did we get when we divided b by 2 for x? -3. So that means -3 goes in there, but remember it swaps when it goes in, so this would be +3. Then when we divided b by 2 for y, we got 2, so this would be -2. And then the number that goes out here, you just add all 3 of these numbers up. So 3 plus 9 plus 4. That gives us 16. Okay? Now, my center, you can think of it 2 ways. Before we said it's the opposite of what's in the parentheses. That's the way you learned it a couple days ago. Or you can just look at what we got when we divided b by 2. So -3 and 2 would be our center. Then, if 16 is our radius squared, how would we find our radius? You take the square root. So the square root of 16 is 4. Now, last thing I do is I graph it. So we're going to graph -3, 2. We go left, 3, up, 2. And since our radius is 4, we're going to go out 4 in each direction. And I do not mind if your circles are not beautiful and perfect, but I do not want to see this shape, which I've been seeing a lot. That is not considered a circle. So make sure you round your edges as you go around. Okay, let's try another one of those. So let's look at number 9. In number 9, I have my x part here that I need to complete, and then I have my y part here that I need to complete. So to complete the x part, I'm going to take my b, which is -8. I'm going to divide that by 2, and that's going to give me a -4. I'm going to take -4 and square it, and that gives me 16. So I'm going to put 16 here in the parentheses with the x's, but I also have to put it on the right-hand side beside -40. Then I need to complete the square and find c for y, so I'm going to take -10. I'm going to divide that by 2, which gives me a -5. I'm going to square -5, and that gives me 25. So I'm putting 25 in the parentheses with y, and I'm also putting it beside 16. Okay, now we're going to write our equation. So I know I'm going to have, when I divided -8 by 2, I got -4, so this would be +4 squared plus parentheses y, and when I divided -10 by 2, I got -5, so this would be +5 squared equals, I know 16 plus 25 is 41, so I have a -40, a +41, so that would leave me with 1. My center is going to be exactly what I got when I divided both my b's by 2, so -4 and -5. And then my radius, to find my radius, I take the square root of 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. So then we're going to graph that. I'm going to go left 4 and down 5. And then from there, since the radius is 1, we're going up 1, right 1, down 1, left 1, and drawing our circle. Okay, do I have any questions so far? Okay. Now, I want to try one where they didn't actually draw out all the spaces and blanks for you. So we're going to look at number 12. So in number 12, this is why I go and I find my x's, find my y's. Because from here, we may not exactly know where to put our blanks and continue. So if I come up here, I have these two x's, and then I have these two y's. So that tells me I'm going to need a blank behind this, a blank behind this, and if I have two blanks on my left-hand side, I'm also going to need them here. So this would give me x squared plus 14x plus blank. Bring down my plus sign, then I'm going to have y squared minus 6y plus, and then I'm going to have to complete the square there, equals -49 plus blank plus blank. Okay, are there any questions about where we put our blanks? Okay, so to fill in this first blank, to complete the first square, we're going to take b, which is 14. We divide that by 2, and that gives me 7. I'm going to take 7 and square it, which is going to give me 49. So I'm putting 49 right here with my x's, but I also have to put it on the right-hand side of the equal sign. Then I'm going to complete the square for my y's. So I take -6. I'm going to divide that by 2, which gives me a -3. I'm going to square that -3, and it gives me 9. So I'm going to put 9 in my blank with my y's, but I'm also going to put it on the right-hand side. Now, I want to write my equation, so I know I'm going to have parentheses, x squared plus parentheses with a y squared equals a number. So what goes in with x is going to be what I got when I divided b by 2. So that's a +7, so this would be -7. Then what goes in there with y? We got a -3, so this would be a +3. And then I know -49, +49, those cancel out, and I'm just left with 9. Okay. Then my center is exactly what I got when I divided both b's by 2. So I got 7 and -3. So my center is 7, -3. And then my radius I get by taking the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. So if I graph this, I'm going to go to the right 7 and down 3. And since my radius is 3, from there I'm going to go up 3, put a dot. I'm going to go right 3, put a dot. Down 3, put a dot. And left 3 and put a dot.